My friends, we often mistake attention for love and distance for indifference. We expect those who care for us to constantly affirm their affection, to always be present and never leave us wondering. But this expectation is flawed. It is built on the fragile foundation of craving validation, rather than understanding the nature of love itself. We live in an age where attention is often mistaken for love. A message, a glance, a like on a post, these small gestures of acknowledgement can make us feel seen, valued, even cherished. Yet the truth is that attention is fleeting, while love is enduring. The two are not the same. Attention is the mind's brief focus. Love is the heart's unwavering commitment. One can exist without the other. A stranger may give you attention, but they do not love you. A person may love you deeply, yet not always be present to offer constant attention. Understanding this distinction can free us from unnecessary suffering. Many people equate love with validation. If someone constantly checks in, asks about our day, praises our actions, or reassures us, we feel loved. When this attention fades, doubt creeps in. We wonder if the love itself has diminished. But love is not a performance, nor is it measured in visibility. A parent does not cease to love a child simply because they stop hovering. A mentor does not lose faith in a student simply because they allow them to struggle. The strongest love often works quietly, without seeking acknowledgement. It exists not to reassure the receiver, but to uphold its purpose, to care, to respect, to trust. Consider the stars. They are always there, distant yet steady, providing light even when unseen. Love, in its highest form, is like this, constant, not always observable, but unwavering. Attention, on the other hand, is like a passing torch, bright, noticeable, but temporary. A person can shower another with attention while having no true regard for their well-being. They can speak words of admiration while withholding genuine care. They can be present in the body yet absent in the soul. It is easy to mistake attention for love because attention feels immediate, tangible. It gives an instant sense of importance, of being recognized. Love, on the other hand, often works in the background. It does not always demand to be seen or acknowledged. A friend who listens without judgment, a partner who respects your independence, a family member who trusts your decisions. These acts of love may not come with grand gestures, but they hold more weight than 1,000 empty words. Those who crave attention often mistake its absence for a lack of love. This is why people sometimes chase relationships that are intense but shallow. A person who showers another with compliments, constantly checks in, or makes dramatic displays of affection may seem deeply loving. Yet, if their attention is inconsistent, if it comes and goes based on their own needs, rather than a genuine investment in the other's well-being, then it is not love, but self-interest disguised as affection. Love is not about appearing attentive when it is convenient. It is about remaining present in spirit, even when words are few and actions are unseen. True love does not need to prove itself through constant presence. If a person steps back, it does not mean they care less. In fact, love sometimes requires distance. A parent lets their child explore the world rather than clinging to them in fear. A wise friend allows another to make mistakes rather than rescuing them from every hardship. A devoted partner understands that love is not suffocation but freedom. If someone is always in your space, always filling every silence, always seeking to keep your attention on them, that is not necessarily love. It can be a form of control, insecurity, or even a desire to be needed rather than to truly care. The need for attention is rooted in the ego. It desires affirmation, proof of significance, the feeling of being irreplaceable. But love does not operate through the ego. It does not need to constantly announce itself. Love is in the actions that endure beyond the fleeting moments of recognition. It is in patience, in understanding, in allowing another to be without demanding that they always see you, acknowledge you, or reassure you. Some of the most profound forms of love exist in silence. A teacher who believes in a student's potential does not always praise them, but pushes them toward growth. A friend who respects your solitude does not fill every empty space with words, but allows you the dignity of your own thoughts. A partner who trusts you does not demand constant reassurance, but stands by you in quiet strength. Love is not in the noise, it is in the depth of presence that does not waver even when unspoken. We must learn to see love beyond mere attention. The absence of words does not mean an absence of care. The lack of immediate response does not mean abandonment. The space given is not a sign of indifference, but sometimes the deepest act of respect. Love is not measured in how often someone looks at you, calls you, or praises you. It is measured in how deeply they regard your well-being, your independence, and your growth. To mistake attention for love is to set ourselves up for disappointment. Attention will fade, shift, and move elsewhere. Love, when true, remains steady even when unseen. It does not need to constantly remind you of its presence, because its existence is not dependent on your awareness of it. Love, in its truest form, is not found in the fleeting glance, the passing word, or the temporary spark. It is found in the quiet, unwavering commitment that endures beyond the need for recognition. Distance is often misunderstood. People associate it with detachment, indifference, or even rejection. But distance, when rooted in love and wisdom, can be an act of trust. It can be a silent acknowledgement of another's strength, an unspoken confidence in their ability to navigate life without constant intervention. In relationships, whether between friends, lovers, or family members, space is not always a sign of neglect. It can be a profound gesture of respect and faith. When someone steps back, it does not always mean they care less. In fact, it may mean they care so much that they refuse to weaken the other with excessive dependence. A good mentor does not hover over a student's every move, nor does a strong leader micromanage every decision. Instead, they trust that the lessons imparted, the wisdom shared, and the foundation built are enough for the other to stand on their own. To withhold unnecessary interference is not abandonment, it is belief in another's ability to grow and make choices independently. True love, whether romantic or platonic, is not about possession. It does not seek to control, to demand constant presence, or to suffocate the other under the weight of expectation. Instead, it recognizes that for a person to flourish, they must have the room to breathe, to think, to evolve without always being watched or reassured. When two people trust each other, they do not fear distance because they understand that closeness is not defined by physical presence alone. Love is not measured in how often one checks in, but in the confidence that no matter the space, the bond remains intact. Parents often struggle with this lesson. Their instinct is to protect, to guide, to always be there. But the ultimate act of love is to let go, not in abandonment, but in faith. A child must learn to walk without a guiding hand, must experience failure without immediate rescue, must face challenges without constant intervention. A parent's love does not diminish when they step back, rather, it strengthens, for it says, "I believe in you." Distance in this sense is not neglect but empowerment. It grants the freedom to make mistakes, to grow, to become independent. A parent who never allows their child to struggle is not showing love but preventing growth. In friendships and romantic relationships, distance is often feared because it is associated with fading affection. If someone we care for does not constantly seek us out, we assume they no longer value us. But this assumption is rooted in insecurity rather than reality. A deep connection does not require constant validation. In fact, the most stable relationships are those that do not demand ceaseless presence but instead trust in the strength of the bond. When two people understand each other, they do not panic in silence, nor do they fear the occasional distance. They know that love does not dissolve simply because words are not exchanged every moment. There is a difference between distance born from neglect and distance born from trust. The former is avoidance, an escape from responsibility or emotional depth. The latter is respect, an acknowledgement that love does not require chains to hold it together. When someone steps back, not because they do not care, but because they trust the other to stand on their own, that is a testament to the strength of the relationship. Closeness does not mean dependency, it means security in knowing that even apart the connection remains. Many misunderstand this principle in romantic relationships. They believe that love must always be intense, always present, always affirming itself. They fear solitude, equating it with loneliness. But true love does not demand constant attention. It thrives in the confidence that no matter the space, the bond remains unshaken. Two people who trust each other do not need to constantly check in to ensure they still matter. They do not fear silence or independence because their connection is built on something deeper than proximity. In the realm of personal growth, distance is necessary. A person cannot develop wisdom, strength, or resilience if they are never left to face the world alone. If someone is always sheltered, always guided, always protected from struggle, they never learn the full extent of their own capabilities. Growth requires solitude, reflection, and at times the absence of those we rely on. It is in these moments that we discover our own strength, our ability to stand, to endure, to thrive. Distance, rather than being a punishment, becomes a gift, an opportunity to build resilience, to test what we have learned, to prove to ourselves that we are capable. Those who struggle with trust often resist distance. They cling to others, fearing that space will lead to disconnection. But the strongest relationships, whether friendships, family bonds, or romantic partnerships, are those that can withstand time apart. The deepest love does not demand constant validation. It rests in the quiet assurance that no matter how far one may go, they remain connected. When we trust someone, we do not need them to be constantly present to feel secure. We know that distance does not weaken love, it reveals its true strength. Love in its highest form is meant to strengthen, not weaken. It should be a source of courage, resilience, and self-discovery, not something that diminishes one's sense of self. When love is true, it does not create dependency or insecurity. It builds confidence and inner peace. Love should never be a weight that drags a person down, but a force that helps them rise. Too often, love is misunderstood as something that requires sacrifice to the point of self-erasure, where one gives so much of themselves that they are left empty. This is not love, it is attachment, insecurity, or control disguised as affection. True love does not take away from a person but adds to them, making them stronger, not weaker. There is a difference between love that nurtures and love that consumes. Love that nurtures allows growth, encourages independence, and strengthens the soul. It pushes a person to become better, not by force, but by support. It challenges without breaking, corrects without belittling, and remains steady even in moments of hardship. On the other hand, love that consumes is possessive, suffocating, and driven by fear. It makes one feel small, incapable, or incomplete without the other. It thrives on control rather than trust, on dependence rather than partnership. This is not love, but a weakening force that drains rather than empowers. When love is healthy, it instills confidence. It does not create a sense of constant neediness, where one feels unworthy, unless reassured at all times. Instead, it gives security, a quiet knowledge that love does not waver simply because it is not always spoken. A person who loves deeply should not feel trapped or obligated, but free and uplifted. If love becomes a burden, something that makes life heavier rather than lighter, then it is not serving its true purpose. Love should never be a reason to shrink oneself to fit another's expectations. Instead, it should be something that gives a person the space to grow into their fullest potential. Strength in love does not mean the absence of hardship. There will be challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of difficulty. But love that strengthens finds ways to endure these trials without destroying the people within it. It teaches resilience, patience, and understanding. It does not crumble under pressure but adapts, allowing both individuals to learn and improve. Weak love, on the other hand, collapses at the first sign of struggle. It cannot withstand distance, silence, or temporary uncertainty, because it is built on fragile foundations of fear and doubt. True love does not weaken in hardship but finds ways to grow stronger through it. Love should also strengthen by encouraging individuality. A relationship should not mean losing oneself for the sake of another. Instead, it should be a space where both people become better versions of themselves. Love that requires a person to sacrifice their dreams, their identity, or their happiness is not love, it is control. A strong love respects differences, supports ambitions, and does not demand that one person shrink so the other can shine. In true love, both people rise together, not at the cost of the other's well-being. Love that strengthens also fosters emotional resilience. It does not create excessive dependency, where one person cannot function without constant validation. Instead, it helps a person build inner strength, knowing that love exists even in silence, even in distance. It does not make one fragile, but rather teaches the value of patience and trust. A love that weakens, however, is one that instills fear, the fear of losing, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough. This kind of love chains a person rather than setting them free. To love and be loved should be empowering. It should not create doubt, insecurity, or the feeling of being trapped. Love should be something that allows a person to face the world with more courage, not less. It should give strength to endure life's hardships, to grow beyond limitations, and to become someone even greater. If love is making a person weaker, if it is stripping them of their confidence, their independence, or their ability to stand alone, then it is not love in its truest form. True love strengthens always. Silence is often misunderstood. People tend to equate it with neglect, indifference, or emotional distance. In a world that values constant communication, where immediate responses and endless conversations are seen as proof of care, silence can feel unsettling. But silence is not always a sign of disregard. Sometimes it is an act of trust, a space for reflection, or even a deeper form of connection. True understanding does not always require words, and true presence does not always demand noise. When someone is silent, it does not necessarily mean they have stopped caring. There are moments when silence is necessary, when words cannot capture the depth of emotion, when reflection is more valuable than immediate reaction, or when love is expressed not through speech, but through quiet presence. A friend sitting beside you in difficult times, offering nothing but their company, may provide more comfort than 1,000 words. A parent watching their child struggle but refraining from interfering does not love them any less. Rather, they believe in their ability to overcome challenges on their own. Silence can also be a form of wisdom. Not everything needs to be said, and not every thought needs to be voiced. People who understand the power of silence know that sometimes stepping back and allowing space is more valuable than filling the air with unnecessary words. Silence allows emotions to settle, perspectives to shift, and understanding to grow. In conflicts, those who react impulsively often escalate the situation, while those who remain silent for a moment allow clarity to emerge. Silence is not avoidance, but a tool for deeper thought and careful response. In relationships, silence is often misinterpreted as emotional distance. If a partner is not constantly affirming their feelings, doubts may arise, but love is not always loud. It does not always come in the form of grand declarations or constant reassurance. Some people express love through quiet acts of kindness, through presence rather than words. A person who does not say "I love you" every day may still show their love through actions, through patience, through support, through the willingness to be there when it truly matters. Silence can also be a sign of respect. There are times when words are not needed, when giving another person space is the most loving thing one can do. When someone is grieving, when they are lost in thought, when they are processing their emotions, silence can be a gift. To fill every quiet moment with words is to deny the other person the room to feel and understand their own emotions. A person who truly cares knows when to speak and when to remain silent, offering presence without intrusion. Personal growth often happens in silence. People need solitude to reflect, to understand themselves, and to develop resilience. Those who constantly seek noise, validation, or conversation may be avoiding the discomfort of their own thoughts. But there is strength in learning to sit with oneself in silence, to be at peace without the need for constant external stimulation. Silence allows people to hear their own minds, to process their experiences, and to develop inner stability. Those who embrace silence learn to become self-sufficient, no longer relying on the constant presence of others to feel whole. Not all silence is positive, of course. Silence can be used as a weapon, as a way to punish or manipulate. When silence is meant to inflict pain, to create distance without explanation, or to avoid necessary conversations, it becomes harmful. But silence that comes from a place of trust, wisdom, or respect should not be mistaken for neglect. Just because someone is silent does not mean they do not care. Sometimes silence is the purest expression of faith in another's ability to stand on their own. There is a deep power in learning to appreciate silence rather than fearing it. In moments of stillness, people can connect more deeply with themselves and with others. Relationships that can endure silence without insecurity are often the strongest, built not on constant reassurance, but on true understanding. When silence is seen not as neglect but as a natural and even necessary part of human connection, it becomes a source of strength rather than a cause for doubt. We live in a world where external validation is constantly sought. Social media has made it easier than ever to chase approval, whether through likes and comments or public recognition. People often measure their worth based on how others perceive them, seeking reassurance that they are valued, admired, or successful. But depending on external validation is a fragile way to live. When self-worth is built on the opinions of others, it becomes unstable, shifting with every criticism, rejection, or lack of acknowledgement. True confidence and fulfillment come from within, not from the fleeting approval of the outside world. The need for external validation is deeply ingrained in human nature. From childhood, people are conditioned to seek praise, good grades, earn approval from parents and teachers, achievements are rewarded with recognition, and social acceptance depends on conforming to certain expectations. While encouragement and support are valuable, they should not become the foundation of self-worth. When a person relies too heavily on validation from others, they give away control over their own happiness. Their mood, confidence, and sense of identity become dictated by external factors rather than their own beliefs and values. Depending on external validation also creates an endless cycle of seeking approval. The more a person relies on praise, the more they crave it. When validation is received, it provides a temporary sense of fulfillment, but when it is absent, doubt and insecurity creep in. This cycle can be exhausting, leading to anxiety and self-doubt. Instead of living authentically, people start shaping their actions and decisions based on what they think will earn approval. They suppress their true desires, change their personalities to fit in, and hesitate to take risks for fear of failure or criticism. In doing so, they lose touch with their genuine selves. True confidence does not come from external validation, but from self-acceptance. When a person believes in their own worth, they do not need constant reassurance from others. They do not fear rejection, because they know their value is not determined by whether someone else approves of them. They make decisions based on their own principles rather than seeking approval. They pursue goals that align with their passions, not because they want recognition, but because they genuinely care about their work. This kind of inner confidence is unshakable. It does not fade when praise is absent, nor does it crumble in the face of criticism. People who depend on external validation often struggle with rejection. A single negative comment can feel devastating, as though it defines their entire worth. But when self-worth is rooted internally, criticism is easier to handle. It is seen as feedback rather than a personal attack. A person who trusts in their own abilities does not need everyone to agree with them. They understand that different opinions exist, and they do not take rejection as a reflection of their value. This ability to remain steady in the face of criticism is what allows people to grow, learn, and improve without being paralyzed by the fear of disapproval. Relying on external validation can also lead to a loss of authenticity. When a person is too focused on gaining approval, they may present a version of themselves that is not entirely real. They say what they think others want to hear, they follow trends rather than their own instincts, and they avoid expressing unpopular opinions. Over time, this creates a disconnect between who they truly are and who they pretend to be. Living inauthentically may bring temporary acceptance, but it ultimately leads to frustration and emptiness. True fulfillment comes from embracing one's real self, even if it means facing criticism or standing alone at times. The most successful and fulfilled people are those who do not rely on validation from others. They trust in their own vision, even when others doubt them. They pursue their passions even if they are unconventional. They are not afraid to take risks, knowing that failure does not define them. This self-assurance allows them to live freely, unburdened by the constant need for approval. They understand that external validation is fleeting, but inner confidence is lasting. Breaking free from the need for validation does not mean rejecting all feedback or becoming indifferent to others. It means valuing external opinions without letting them control one's self-worth. It means appreciating support and encouragement while maintaining independence. The goal is not to become completely detached, but to find a balance, one where validation is welcomed but not necessary for self-confidence. At the core of this shift is self-awareness. When a person truly understands themselves, they no longer need others to define their worth. They recognize their strengths, acknowledge their weaknesses, and accept themselves fully. This self-acceptance is what allows them to navigate life with confidence, free from the burden of seeking constant approval. Instead of depending on external validation, they rely on something far more powerful: their own belief in themselves. Love is often mistaken for possession. Many people believe that to love someone means to have them, to claim them as their own, to demand their time, attention, and loyalty in a way that leaves no room for freedom. But true love is not about ownership, it is about connection. It is not about control, but about trust. Love, in its purest form, does not confine or restrict. It nurtures, supports, and allows the other person to grow without fear of being held back. Possessiveness comes from insecurity, the fear that without control, love will fade or be lost. It seeks to claim, to dictate, to ensure that the person loved remains within reach at all times. It is the belief that love must be proven through constant presence, through unwavering commitment that leaves no room for independence. But love that is built on control is fragile, for it is not based on trust but on fear. It is not an act of devotion but a reflection of doubt. True love, on the other hand, does not cling. It trusts in the strength of the bond without the need for chains. When love becomes possessive, it ceases to be love. It turns into an obsession, a need to dominate rather than cherish. Relationships built on possession become suffocating, where one person feels trapped rather than valued. The idea that love means you are mine is a distortion of what love should be. A person is not an object to be owned, nor should they feel obligated to sacrifice their identity to prove their commitment. Love that is real does not demand that one person give up their freedom for the other. Instead, it flourishes in mutual respect and understanding. Freedom is essential to love. When two people truly love each other, they allow one another to be individuals, to pursue their own dreams, to have friendships, interests, and experiences outside of the relationship. Possessiveness, however, tries to limit this freedom. It insists that love must be exclusive in every way, that time spent apart is a threat, that independence is a sign of disloyalty. But love should not feel like a cage. It should not create fear of losing oneself to satisfy the insecurities of another. Instead, it should provide a sense of security that allows both people to be fully themselves without fear of judgment or resentment. Trust is the foundation of love without possession. When two people trust each other, they do not need constant reassurance. They do not feel the need to monitor or control each other's actions, because they believe in the strength of their bond. Possessiveness, on the other hand, is rooted in it believes that without strict boundaries, love will be lost. But love is not something that can be contained. It is not something that weakens with space or time apart. Love that is strong does not require constant proof, nor does it crumble in the face of independence. Jealousy is often a symptom of possessive love. It arises from the fear that someone else will take away what one believes they own. But love is not a competition. It is not about eliminating threats or proving superiority. A person who truly loves does not see their partner as property, but as a human being with their own choices, their own desires, their own freedom. Jealousy fades when love is based on trust rather than control, when both individuals recognize that love is not a battle to be won, but a connection to be nurtured. Love that is not possessive is the most enduring. When two people are free to be themselves, they do not feel the need to escape. When love is not based on ownership, it remains genuine rather than forced. A person who feels trusted, valued, and respected will stay not because they have to, but because they want to. The strongest relationships are not those built on control but on mutual appreciation. Love should be a source of strength, not confinement. It should allow both individuals to grow, not shrink under the weight of another's demands. To love without possession is to love unconditionally. It is to say, I care for you, not because you belong to me, but because I value you as you are. It is to accept that love is not about keeping someone close at all costs, but about supporting them even when they need space. It is understanding that love is not measured by control, but by the ability to let go when necessary. True love does not fear independence, it embraces it, knowing that love is not something that can be owned, only shared. True love is not about holding on too tightly, but about trusting deeply. It is not about ownership, but about respect. When love is free from possession, it becomes something far more beautiful, something that grows instead of suffocates, something that strengthens rather than weakens. To love without possession is to love with trust, with patience, and with the understanding that love is not about keeping someone close by force, but about giving them the freedom to choose you every single day. In the end, love that is freely given, not demanded, is the love that lasts.